Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Welcome back to Purchasing Truth, everyone. I'm Tom Hazard with your host, Bill Stierle. And, Bill, at the end of our last episode, we talked about how mind reading is overrated. And I think that it's probably human nature for people to mind read a little bit or to think in their mind, I think the president's going to do this, or I think Mitch McConnell's going to do that.
Yes.
Or I think that Beto O'Rourke's going to say so, whatever. It doesn't matter who it is.
That's correct.
But we, I think mind reading, I agree with you, it's overrated because, every time I've thought some politician was going to do one thing or another, I think more often than not, I'm wrong.
Yeah, Tom, I appreciate, kind of us going over this part about how mind reading and a person's worldview thinks that I know what the person is going to say or do next. And instead of staying in a place of observation, which is really the most powerful place to stay when you're listening to somebody. And there is a rush to meaning making. And imagine what it would be like when we get past or through this current political experience that we're going through and get to the other side where there is more stability and more certainty and there's more progress. Instead of the back and forth, and there's the kind of the hijacking of truth. The partial truth seems reasonable. Mitch McConnell seems reasonable with the things he's saying until you go like, he's saying one thing but doing something different. And it doesn't mean that other politicians don't say one thing and then know they can't do the thing they just said because the votes are really against them. What I'm going to be doing is I'm putting up on the floor, and meanwhile the votes are not there to even get close to get done. So there is really kind of the honesty of what happens when a group of individuals really occupy a space or a set of beliefs and just kind of stay after that set of beliefs, and they're going to stay after them, in order to allow their truth to exist, their experience of truth to get imposed upon others, instead of a range of truth. There's a narrowing that's taking place. And one of the troubles with black and white thinking is, and we've mentioned this before in the past, is that black and white thinking allows the brain not to re-question a belief that it currently has or currently has in place. So let's get into this a little bit, and we could talk about how to apply empathy and then exercise choice when we're looking to cultivate a healthier narrative regarding truth. The president is one thing. The things the president says or does in one thing. The thing that Mitch McConnell does is another thing. And the third thing that's unseen is these people are meeting their needs at the expense of others. It's at the expense of the greater good. It's at the expense of law. It's at the expense of integrity. It's at the expense of respect, mutual respect for what another human being has to say or do. So if I see Mitch McConnell standing at a microphone and I see 5 or 7 other senators standing behind him, and those folks are saying something and mutually supporting what Mitch is saying, that doesn't mean it's true. It just means it's in their best interest to speak what they're speaking. Okay, does that make some sense?
It does make sense to me, for sure.
Okay. So if I empathize with what Mitch is saying, rather than get outraged by it. See the difference?
Yeah.
As soon as I said it, it was like, what? Empathize with it instead of get outraged by it? So if he says, well, the senators are really busy, so they couldn't be in a meeting. Oh, so they were choosing to do other things rather than the important thing I would like them to do. I just empathize with it. I didn't become outraged by it. Oh, so you would have rather chose to meet your need for emotional safety or meet the need for protection by not being in a meeting, so you couldn't be held accountable for what was being said in that meeting? Oh, yes, we weren't there. Oh, so you were choosing not to be there. Yes. So you're choosing to do other important things. Yes. Okay, what important things were you choosing to do ahead of the important thing I think is important? See, now I'm empathizing with it with no outrage, because what happens is that they don't, when somebody is stonewalling, when somebody's avoiding, when somebody's withdrawing, when somebody's criticizing, they're looking to get the other side to outrage. Therefore, the person that is calm is holding more truth. But are they really? No, they're not.
Well, it would seem to me, too, that getting to outrage is not going to do anything but continue to move the two parties farther apart. Is that right, Bill?
Right, because what winds up happening is there is hoping, there's a hope, there's just a hope that anger is going to be expressed and outrage is going to be expressed.
And then that makes it look like the person that lost their temper that expresses that outrage, I would think most often as seen as on the wrong side of the argument.
Right. If you shouldn't be angry. You shouldn't be outraged. In fact, well, let's just talk rationally now. It's like, you would like me to talk rationally about something that is against a primary value of mine? Is that what you'd like? There is a pressure to take place to try to get an emotional reaction to take place. And what winds up happening is that we need to exercise choice, apply empathy to walk ourselves back from the anger reactive mind and move ourselves into the grounded, passionate place of things. I am going to be a solid, passionate person about an injustice that you are acting upon for something that is way out of alignment with integrity, with the things we stand for.
Well, and let's take an example with Mitch McConnell. I mean, I like where you're going with this, because I think when you step into empathy and choice, you would force your opponent in the conversation to really have to, you force their conscience to come out, and they start realize, well, maybe not their conscience, but certainly they realize, if I continue down this path, this is going to be a loser for me. So Mitch McConnell, who didn't have time recently to address the issue of the 9/11 first responders, health funding.
Yes.
And so you would say to Mitch McConnell, when he says, well, we haven't had time to address that. Oh, so you've had some more important things you've needed to deal with or something along those lines.
Yeah, that's empathize. So you really, so there was, so that a part of you would really like to take an action in this direction, but you're choosing to put something else in front of this. Is that what you're choosing? You're hoping that there's going to be an outrage on our side, or an outrage by these people, and you really don't want to. You want to put some limitations on this spending, and you want to spend it very little in this direction, and you don't see this as something you would like to use this. You would like to use this a piece of very important piece of real estate, called 9/11. You would like to use that and look like the good guy. I mean, that's a judgment, so I want to probably stay away from that sentence. Instead of empathizing with it, our brain wants to go, are you crazy? Are you doing it again? Why are you doing this thing again?
Yeah, I agree. That's what people easily get outraged and want to say, what is wrong with you, Mitch McConnell? Why aren't you? And of course, this is also the legislation that sort of will never go away, because the Congress has only authorized it to certain levels in the past, and the people who are affected by these health effects continue to suffer, and they need more support. And Jon Stewart has to keep going back to Congress and lending his, celebrity to it to try to get them help, just because he's so passionate about it. And I wonder if the fact that Jon Stewart was involved is one of the reasons that some of those congressmen didn't show up to the hearing. Is it because they think Jon Stewart is so far to the left and they don't want to be associated with something that he would represent? I don't get that.
Great example of mind reading is overrated. Right there.
Yeah. Oh, good.
You really, what you just did was the most wonderful thing possible, which is that you are looking for an explanation of the good reason why someone did it. That's the problem with mind reading. I'm going to try to explain the good reason instead of empathize with the current condition.
Well, that's a great example for this episode. That's kind of unfortunate, because that wasn't really what I was trying to do. For me, it was just in my own mind trying to figure out, why on earth would someone be against providing support to people that are there to protect us? Because to me, the police and the fire department are the most apolitical institutions in our country.
They are.
And
that's what makes it one of the greatest thing, one of the biggest difference, that one of the biggest difference that the biggest difference between our country and other countries is the separation between the police and the military. That's one of the best things that we do. The police are supposed to be around, protect and serve. The military are about being the international protection. Inside our country, we get to act kind and civil to each other. Outside our country, if we declare war, we don't have to act civilly towards another person. So we can depersonalize somebody else from another country. We could go to a war and do a war just by, activating that and saying, oh, they're going to do this bad thing to us. Therefore, we get to overreact. We overstepped in Iraq from the place of protection because they didn't have the things that we went to war that said that they did.
Yeah.
We didn't have them. Even Saddam Hussein said, what do you guys want? Do you want more oil? Do you want a better oil price? What do you guys want over there? Why are you coming after me? He was, well, and the answer was, we want some more oil. Thank you very much. We'll take the oil.
Well, under the pretext of we're going to find the weapons of mass destruction.
Oh, when we get there, we'll find it. When we get there, we'll find it. When we get there, we'll find it. We got there, we didn't find it.
Right.
It's like, and I mean, all you got to do is think about, George, Bush holding up his hand and saying, all you need is this one handful of yellow cake, scaring the crap out of people. And the answer is true, but it wasn't, that's all you would need, but it doesn't mean that that's available, that you can have it, a hand. Think about that. He's holding a handful of uranium in his hand. It's almost like, oh, if you have it in here, you could put it in your pocket. You could put it on a plane. You can just, it's like, do you know what it takes to manage that and no one dying along the way? It's like, you can't just put it in your hand.
Right.
I mean, I'm being simplistic about it, but it's one of the strongest visuals that still show up in my brain that was propagated, promoted, into the minds of Americans as being dangerous.
Right.
Okay, so then it creates fear or it creates anger. All right, so let's get back to this thing called how we apply empathy and its interaction, with that. And I mean, we can even include a piece on how anger and getting enraged is used.
Okay. Let's do that.
To get, get it. And then the reason when any of that shows up, then there's like, oh, I got to get some understanding. I need to mind read our way into this. And you can imagine that, what is it going to be like to do something different than what's being done here? So anyways, okay. So what would make your life wonderful, Tom, if you think about mind reading as a path to enrollment and the engagement? It's a path to enrollment and engagement. What it does is it holds the believer captive to the leader. That's what mind reading does, is that I'm captive to respond to what Mitch McConnell or Donald Trump is saying. And I'm captive to trying to figure out, because my logical mind cannot make any understanding about this.
Well, it seems, you pointed out quite well that my mind reading was overrated because I'm trying to, process in my head and understand, because I have a hard time believing that anybody would be against offering support to these 9/11 first responders. But that is not, it seems, the path to having a productive discourse about this and getting things done.
As I wave my finger at you, that's exactly right. And that's the primary problem that media is getting hijacked by. They keep trying to understand, make sense of, trying to figure out. And that's where everybody is, in my humble opinion, making a huge mistake. Don't figure it out. Apply some simple language narratives that is power with the insanity. Don't try to get power over the insanity. go power with the insanity. Even I'll just turn the entire tool and my skills in service to Trump. Watch how I turn it in service to him.
All right.
I'm gonna help the president out. If I were on the president's team, if I was in the room.
Okay.
And let's take one of the examples that recently, the cough inside the room.
Yeah, okay. The chief of staff coughed as the president's being interviewed by George Stephanopoulos for his, what was he there for 2 days with ABC interviewing the president? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So now the news media is not making things clean anymore. They would normally clean that up in service of the country. But in this case, they're going like raw beef footage that I can use. Yeah, we're using it.
You know, that's very interesting. I think you're right, Bill. And probably the fact that they've used it, the president is probably
furious,
regretting this 2 days he spent with ABC.
And it part of it reinforces fake news. In other words, because as somebody that's been behind the camera, he knows what it's like to edit out mistakes.
Sure.
As if Hillary or any other politician or Barack Obama didn't make mistakes and it was politely left on the cutting room floor. No, I don't want to say it that way. Let me take another way. Let me say it again. Let's take another way. Oh, third take. Okay, that's the one we're using because it makes the president look the best as possible.
And it probably would have remained on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
It probably would have remained on the cutting room floor had the president not expressed some personal indignance over this cough, like he was personally offended and then perturbed, I guess, right? I mean, it probably would have stayed there.
Well, it would have been left on the cutting room floor if the president showed mutual respect to everybody, had been up to this point in the field of time, had some range of mutual respect. But what happens now and what's happening now is evidence of who he is, kind of warts and all, nobody's letting go of now because he's not doing standard truth telling, like even coming part of the way there.
Right.
He's not standing for primary values around truth. It's like, oh, you want truth? Here. Same as Kellyanne Conway. It's like, oh, you want truth? Here. And they're going to show it and let these things move out to the environment so that here's what the evidence is looking like, folks. And these folks, we're not putting any other stuff on the cutting room floor. We're not going to do that. Why would we do that? You're getting sanitized over there at Fox News. They leave it on the cutting. They edit and co-edit fake news together with the infamous, as if they haven't done this multiple times, the infamous Pete Buttigieg splice. It's like, oh my gosh, what a splice.
Yeah,
you know?
they didn't tell the whole story.
No.
They conveniently cut a portion of it that supported their narrative.
They were literally the two sentences that they put together were 5 to 7 minutes apart. I want this sentence and I want to use this sentence and I'm going to put that next to it and then I'm going to judge that.
Right.
Okay. So
help the president now. What would you do in that cough situation?
There are 3 different sentences that can be used by 3 different people in the room. First, Mick Mulvaney. Oh, Mr. President, I feel disappointment in messing up your take. My bad. Let me make sure you're requesting me to walk out of the room. Is that what you're requesting, Mr. President? Mr. President would have then said yes. That's a line of empathy that Mick Mulvaney is unskilled to deliver, unaware and unskilled to do. He did very typical shame-based response. I'm sorry, Mr. President.
And if he had done what you suggested, he would have prevented the president from stepping on his own landmine, right?
And saying the next sentence.
Right.
If you're going to, so Mr. President, I'm not feeling well. Let me make sure I leave the room if it comes up again. Trump would have calmed down and then wouldn't have stayed in that agitated state and worked himself into defensiveness and contempt and criticism like he does. The president is working himself up into the language narrative of, listen, can't you see that I'm trying to make a point here? Oh, I have to do the take again.
Right.
Let's shoot it again. And then they moved the cameras and he got pissed at that.
Yeah, you saw that the camera moved away from him. He's like, oh, I got to start again.
Right. I have to cultivate the right clip here. The president doesn't know that he's on such bad footing with himself and his integrity is so low that this footage is going to get out. Leaks are going to get out. Reactions are going to get out. Even Laura, I think it was Laura Ingraham said it. It's like, who allowed the president to be videotaped by them? It's like we've been sanitizing him for the last 2 years. And it's like, oh my gosh. So, okay. So as you and I take a breath and become empathetic for the president, it might sound also like this. George Stephanopoulos, if he wanted to choose to do that, again, unskilled and unaware.
Right.
His best sentence is, so Mr. President, I'm guessing you're feeling aggravated right now and you would like a clean take. The president would look at him and said, yes. Frustrated. The clean take is the request. The need is respect.
Right. Which, of course, is the president's, I think, number 1 or number 2 need on earth.
Yeah, he's got 5 of them in a row. The media makes the mistake, and the intelligence agencies of other countries make the mistake of, all you got to do is flatter him. All you got to do is praise him. That's not what he fully needs. He needs empathy for the pain that he carries about not getting the level of respect he would like as a human being all the way from childhood up, not getting the level of acknowledgement he would like, not having a strong self-worth. Those are the things he needs empathy for. So what winds up happening, he carries a lot of anger and a lot of furiousness that he then uses to make people submit around him to get false respect. That's what he does.
Wow, unpack that one. That was really profound, Bill. I think you're right.
Yeah, he's getting false respect. All right, so if I use the, coming back to the theme here, if I apply choice and I apply empathy to win back truth, I need a better relationship to anger than my current understanding of anger. Because I might get angry inside, but I better know how anger is created. So let me put a slide up, Tom. I didn't think about this, but now I'm glad we're doing this. My brain keeps saying, do the anger slide. Do the anger slide. So that's what we're going to do.
All right, let's see it.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me set it up this way instead, because that's what's needed. Do it this. Oh, there we go. Now I feel better. All right. Okay, let me put this thing up.
All right, editors, cut some of this banter chit chat as he's getting the slide. You'll figure it out.
Tom, do you have the word anger on the screen?
I do.
All right. Notice the word angry is sitting here. And there's a thing called a core emotion on the screen. Do you see that, Tom?
Yes.
Okay. Notice I've got anger, irritated, annoyed, disappointment, sad, helpless. The reason why he uses the word sad, it's the safest word because he really wants to say, those people are really angry. Projection. I feel sad because I'm not getting the respect I want from them. That's what he's saying. Okay, so let's peel back anger. And I'm really hoping a bunch of people hear this thing because most people don't understand how anger works. Okay, so number one, Tom, anger is a two-part emotion. You can't have anger unless you are having some language in your head that activates cortisol and adrenaline. And there's three different things that can activate the brain. The first thing that can activate is black and white thinking. I'm right, you're wrong. That's the first thing.
Okay.
All right. So if I don't want to be angry, then I got to keep judgment out of my head. So the president is angry most of the time because he wakes up angry. He wakes up with judgments. And he tweets the judgment. All right. So now all of a sudden, everybody else is in reaction. Because as a person that is in the country that freedom of speech is one of the most valuable things that we have, he's exercising freedom of speech. But what he's not doing is exercising quality of thought. He's not using thoughtful speech. He's just using speech based in judgment. The second thing that you can do to get angry is to exercise criticism.
I think he knows how to do that too.
He does a great job with that. He has a lot of shoulds in his head. He has a lot of have tos in his head. What should happen is you should fire Mueller. Well, the reason why McGahn is not testifying is because as soon as somebody is using freedom of speech at the expense of laws and not being thoughtful and processing openly and not being thoughtful about the consequences of the person's actions, because he grew up in a household of limited consequences. How do I know that to be true?
Well, I'd love to hear that.
Well, limited consequences is if you're rich enough to do whatever you want to do and your emotions have been suppressed as a form of discipline / love. Don't get me started here.
Uh-oh.
But the brain only populates with judgments and criticisms about who's right and who's wrong. And then I have the ability to apply the third way to get angry is to start using labels and diagnoses on top of my criticisms, on top of my judgments. And every tweet is based in those narratives. So the president say, I'm not angry. It's like, yeah, I'm not sure you know the difference between aggravated and irritated or aggravated and disappointment, because you can't use disappointment as an emotion because you're already sitting in a judgmental place. You have no room for anything other than my way is the highway. That's all he's got. Why is that true? Well, he's not in touch with what's causing his emotions. all of his emotions in his world are being activated from the external world. They're not being accountable from the internal world. They just aren't. And the weird part about it is Mitch McConnell's the same way and Kellyanne Conway's the same way. They're all in the same boat. They're all pretty angry folks. And they're intentionally, not all of them. Mitch is the one that's intentional. Kellyanne's about halfway there.
The president's just a mosquito that can't stay away from the light, isn't he?
Right. He's just reacting to the judgment, the criticism, the labels. Mitch would like him to shut up more. Kellyanne would like him to shut up more. But they can't, they don't know how to manage. They're all underskilled. They're all unaware of how to language empathy towards this guy. The media is unaware and unskilled about how to language empathy towards this guy.
And so then doesn't the media, because of that lack of skill and knowledge, don't they play right into his hands as the fake news media, into his narrative?
That's right. Because all of a sudden, as soon as they pick the opposite side and push back with facts, Kellyanne gets to say, well, we have alternative facts. The media looks at her and goes like, alternative facts? You mean a narrative that you would like people to believe is true? Notice how I just responded in a compassionate way. Oh, so see the I can't remember. I think it was Jake Tapper was being interviewed. Alternative facts. No, a fact is something that's a fact. There's no alternative facts. His best sentence would have been an empathy sentence. Oh, so the point of view and the opinion you would like people to believe is. That would have been his best compassionate response.
You know, Bill, there was a similar thing that I was really frustrated over in the most recent episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, and you probably saw this too, where Elliot Spitzer is on the panel, and he's talking about how the Democrats are going to battle Trump and win over Trump. And he said exactly what a few times on this program you have said will not work.
Will not work.
He said, well, we have the facts. We're going to battle them with the facts. And I'm like, no, that will, I mean, I'm screaming at the TV. This will not work.
It will not work. He's underskilled and unaware of how language hijacks the body. He's underskilled. It's, if it was, Tom, you and I both have kids that we're raising.
Yes.
Do facts work with kids?
No. Yeah, that ice cream at 9:30 at night before going to bed is not going to be good for you.
No.
I want ice cream.
No, you cannot use it. I mean, do facts work with children? Do facts work? No. Empathy works with children, but facts don't work with children. So empathy for your kid that wants ice cream at 9 p.m. is, gosh, I'm guessing you're feeling excited and you'd like to taste some ice cream. They have to say yes. Yes, I am excited. Yes, I would like ice cream. So you'd really like to choose some ice cream right now because you remember how ice cream really tastes good. Yes. They're not going to say the fact. Yes, Dad, I'm addicted to ice cream. Really would like this because I'd like my hit before I go to bed. Oh my gosh. It's like, they're not going to say the fact. They're not going to have an adult mind with an adult vocabulary. I mean, you gotta, anyway.
How is that any different from the president?
It's the same as the president. It's the same. It's the same as Mitch McConnell. It's the same. You have to go after it with empathy for the tragic belief, the tragic judgment, the tragic criticism. the tragic label and diagnosis that they're having. You've got to go to empathy for it. You've got to find out what that core need that they're going for. Mr. President, you would like me not to cough, and you want me to hear how important it is for you to get a good take so you could be well represented for the United States. Yes, that's an empathy line. You're de-escalating the president, even though he is underskilled and unaware of how his own language is hacking his physiology. He's unaware of that.
So this is certainly unplanned, Bill, but let me
Please
ask you
bring
this.
it on, bud.
So when back a little while ago, there was this day where Nancy Pelosi had this meeting early in the morning with her caucus and about whether to impeach her or not. And she makes a statement in that meeting that the president has been engaged in a cover-up. And that set the president off and threw off a meeting she and Chuck Schumer were having, and actually they started to have in the White House about infrastructure, something that is in a big need in this country, that we need to address our infrastructure, roads, bridges, crumbling, all this sorts of stuff. Now, he was offended at the whole cover-up thing. How could Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and them stepped into that, use empathy, and because the president is unskilled and unaware?
That's right.
What could they have done to then keep that meeting happening and do some productive work? I mean, maybe the first thing she shouldn't have done is said in the media that he's engaged in a cover-up. But let's say that cat was out of the bag. What could they have done?
Mr. President, I'm guessing you're feeling angry and furious, and you'd really like us to hear how you're not covering up anything. Is that correct? Yes. Mr. President, and if he would probably push back, he would probably say, I'm not angry. Okay, so Mr. President, maybe you're really just aggravated and you'd really like us not to use the word cover up for what's taking place. Yes, it's not true what's happening. So, Mr. President, you would like us to hear that it's not true. And you would rather, you have the thought, Mr. President, by not giving us information, that this is going to go away. Is that what your thought is, Mr. President? Yes. So I'm guessing that you really feel irritated, and you would like us to cooperate more with you. Yes, I want this whole thing to go away. It's ruining my presidency. So your need for respect isn't being met the way you would like. Yes. Now I'm back. Now all of a sudden I've got him where I would like him. Mr. President, I'm curious. I wonder how we can get you the respect that you would like, and also get some kind of deal to take place for doing some infrastructure. Should we do some infrastructure, or would you like to communicate differently to the American people about infrastructure? How would you like to do that? I like to do infrastructure. I'm all about infrastructure. Building things is what I do. See, he would have to take the bait for infrastructure. It would completely distract him from going outside and doing the next thing, by the way. And by the way, if he tries to go outside and does the next part, which he did.
You mean the Rose Garden rant?
Rose Garden rant.
Yeah.
He would not have the same rant energy to him. See, a part of it is that he's also not fully wanting to do infrastructure, because they know that infrastructure is something they can use to run on as a party. I am interested in infrastructure. The same reason why they don't want to solve immigration. No, but there's no Republican that wants to solve immigration. None of them want to solve it. Because Ronald Reagan solved it one time and put some laws in place, and the next group of Republicans couldn't run on anything because they couldn't rant, because, wait a minute, didn't President Reagan solve that? Yeah. Yeah, he did solve it. He did do agreement. He did do the asylum piece. He did do that. And that didn't work. Why didn't it work? Well, it let a whole bunch of people in, but it didn't work. What didn't work? Well, it didn't work from stopping stopping immigrants from coming, because, well, they just keep showing up here. Anyways, so we want to realize something very simple here, Tom.
Okay.
Anger is a flamethrower. Passion is a laser. If you are not in touch with anger, it makes it difficult to be passionate about something. Most of the Democrat candidates don't have a very good hold on their anger. So they lash out in judgments, in criticisms, and labels. Biden is actually making this mistake right now. Joe Biden is making the mistake of judging, criticizing, and labeling the president.
Which is probably very popular with the core Democratic base right now.
Right. Instead of what Obama used to do.
Which was?
He would say, I get that the Republicans want this and this and this. But what we stand for as American is that, that, and that. And then he was able to pull 10, 20% of their votes onto his side and get elected for a second time. He stepped into their narrative, didn't try to fight flamethrower with flamethrower. He took the flamethrower, focused it into a laser that turned out to be an impassionate narrative that engaged hope. That's what's missing in all of the candidates. The one that's the one that's most, the ones that are doing the best are the ones that are passionate about. Bernie Sanders is passionate about health care for all, single payer, passionate about it. He's been passionate about it for years.
Decades.
He's angry about the 1%. If he changed that anger to a passion about fairness, he would go further. Listen, I am really passionate about fairness, and I am so interested in getting fairness to be restored. Let's concentrate on what fairness would look like. Don't bash the 1% that much. Just enough.
Right.
Then you got it.
Yeah, we had this example, I think, in our last episode about Bernie Sanders at the Walmart board meeting, right? And how he could have handled that a lot differently. And if you missed that, listeners, go back and listen to the previous episode to hear about that. We don't need to reiterate it here, but it really does point out that, all of these, either the president, his staff, or the candidates that are, trying to run against him, they all do get to this point where they let anger get in the way, don't they?
Well, they don't. They're unaware and have no skill with language. So notice I keep coming back to my two talking points.
Right.
Awareness is a need. Skill is a need. Respect is a need. Fairness is a need. Choice is a need. Truth is a need, but the reason why it gets hijacked is because people are not in touch with the other needs. Mind reading causes us to look for an explanation, try to get understanding, try to explain, try to problem solve, try to put a rule on there. A rule never stands up to emotion, Tom. Never. Ask your kid the last time they snuck in and got ice cream out of the refrigerator without telling you.
Sure.
The rule is not relevant to them. So, and if you catch them, they'll feel either embarrassed or angry. The younger they are, they'll apply anger. That's called a tantrum. So an adult tantrum, a mini explosion, is somebody coughs and the adult sitting behind the chair does a mini tantrum of, I've got to shoot this over again. I'm trying to get respect here. Or, I really feel scared about germs. And you're putting germs in here. I can't get away from this now. I can't get away from the germs because I would normally walk out of the room right now. Because he would. He'd walk out of the room if anybody coughed.
And then the tantrum becomes the big story and overshadows everything that he was trying to portray.
Right. He's trying to white knuckle respect, white knuckle acknowledgement and accomplishment. He's white knuckling it because there's no evidence for it. As many marketers and salespeople and branders do. They white knuckle their brand. They white knuckle. Monsanto has been trying to white knuckle their brand for years. But their brand is so bad that they had to actually sell it because of, the truth. The truth is that your brand kind of stinks. And the things you're doing with your brand are profitable for you and your people, but damaging to everyone else and the planet. Damaging. That there's the substances showing up in the food sources. Damaging.
Yeah.
Damaging. Brand damage, brand slaughter. Awful stuff. Okay, so anger and outrage. Tom, when we're in touch with anger, we do a better job to be passionate. You'll notice how passionate I am about this communication piece. I want people to have skill. I want that people to have awareness. I want people to stop explaining and trying to understand. We can understand over dinner party. Tom, you and I have done this. We've had a roundtable discussion about things. It's as an understanding, explain. Then there's a moment where there's got to get to a resolve. Once we get to a resolve, we then notice here are the needs that were in play, and here's how it could go better. Here's the needs that are in play. Here's how we could get more of our needs met. Listen, our infrastructure, since we brought that up, has lasted this long on the backs of the taxes paid by wealthy Americans 40, 50, 60 years ago. That's what has happened. Our infrastructure has lasted that long. The repair of it and the tax structures being shifted over time has not allowed that same level of civic commitment to take place by taking affluence and turning it back to serve America. It's time for affluence to serve America. And the people that are affluent, we feel grateful and appreciative of their money servicing America so that America can be competitive again. Because when we look around the world, other countries are doing a better job of having their affluent people serve their countries. Oh, that feels pretty good. Do I start sounding like I'm presidential now, Tom?
Oh, for sure.
Did I sound a little do I sound passionate? Did
You
I have
do.
to get angry about it? No, but I'm in touch with anger. I sure am. And it's rooted in fairness, and it's rooted in awareness. And I have some skill to deliver the message. The closest people that are there are Bernie Sanders, Pete Buttigieg, and Elizabeth Warren. I think we can move this anger and this passion piece, because I realize that we haven't covered this yet. This is all new ground, correct?
This is great. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we do how anger and passion gets hijacked by truth next time. So we can wrap this up. Okay, good.
All right.
So Tom, one of the main things to really get a hold of is the front runners that are going to, and the ones that are going to be left at the end of the mix are the ones that are going to do a better job of converting and holding on to anger on one side. And with that anger, they're holding on to it, and they're able to convert it to a passionate message and not just keep going like, my hand is burning because the president colluded and he's the worst person ever, to here's what respect in as a president would look like. Let me give it again. Here's what respect would look like as a president. Here's what mutual respect for others. Here's what American respect stands for. Here's what it looks like on the campaign trail. Here's what it looks like. So the ones that need to get into the game, that if they just have it, a little bit of it, would be Cory Booker, if they want to get into the game. Kamala Harris. Kamala has an attachment to the anger part of it, because she knows what justice looks like.
Yeah.
And she knows what truth looks like. But she hasn't converted it to a passionate message. She's got some compassion for teachers, but you could tell that there's not anger about fairness. It's not fair that the next generation and teachers get treated this way. It's not fair. Because, people have really troublesome stories about teachers, and they go, oh yeah, that they remember the worst teacher. They don't remember the best ones, or the one that made the difference, because there's usually one that makes a difference, and the rest of them regrettably have other kinds of troubles. So with all of that said, Tom, the main thing is that the candidates that are moving up in the poll are having moments where they're converting this piece of cortisol, adrenaline, acetylcholine, anger experience into a powerful, passionate message that sticks and gets legs.
And those people doing that mostly right now in the Democratic field are
the one that's the cleanest, the one whose passion burns cleanest is Pete Buttigieg. The one that passion with anger mixed is Bernie Sanders. He's pretty angry about the injustices.
Sure.
And rightfully so. There's a lot of judgment and criticism to be had, and labels and diagnosis of what those people do and how those people vote, and the free pass that we give them. Even the most richest person, one of the richest persons in the world, Warren Buffett goes, stop coddling the rich.
Right.
Stop coddling them. I'm a rich person and I don't want to be coddled. Here's a book about why not to coddle me. We can handle 70%.
Sure.
My secretary is paying more in taxes than I am. That's not a good fit for America.
Right.
Stop it. He says, stop doing that. Okay.
And then you see that Elizabeth Warren has an element of this too?
I'm glad you brought her back up. Yes, she is engaged in things that she's passionate about is fairness and justice about the working person. She has been an advocate for the people in the bankruptcy. Listen, you've been sticking it to them. The institution sticks it to them for these kinds of fees. They stick it to them in these kinds of ways. And then you're going to stick it to them in bankruptcy too? It's like, stop sticking it to the lower middle class, because those are the ones that get in the most trouble, let alone the middle class. Okay. So Tom, what I'd like for us to do next time is talk about specifically what candidates can do to convert anger into passion, to be compassionate to Republicans who are stuck in their own form of anger and have been hijacked by an angry president, and they're mixing his anger for a passionate warrior. They think he's fighting for them. And right now, they're going to double down on their vote.
Wow, that seems fascinating, Bill. I can't wait to talk about that.
Boy, you can imagine what it's going to be like as we start peeling this one off. It's because having sentences that they can use so that they can get into the game, because the ones that are below, 1-2%, they're not going to get the traction unless they get this anger conversion to passion done. They won't rise. And Biden's going to continue to drop because he's using anger to anger. He's using, I'm going to fight facts with it, and I have no new ideas other than I'm going to be nicer when I get there.
Yeah.
It's like your niceness is not going to work against Mitch McConnell. And by the way, the three of them are in the same bed together. Mitch McConnell, Donald Trump, and Kellyanne Conway are all in the same bed together. And the Democrats have got to talk to the public about them being in the same thing. Well, I guess Mitch McConnell is doing the same thing, and Lindsey Graham. You put them all in the same in the same bed together. Stick them all in the same bed together, narrative-wise, and yeah, it sounds like that they're really being rational, but really what they're being is an advocate for their version of truth, and their version of truth, regrettably, won't serve America. Gosh, I don't think that that's going to serve America going forward. Gosh, I'm not sure if them saying no is going to, with not showing up for a trial is not going to really meet the need for truth. I think we want some truth here. So let's go and take a look at that, Tom, next time, because I think that's going to help. And if any of you are just listening from the thing, please take a look at this anger slide or graphic that I have, and really start utilizing it, because you don't have to be angry as a human being. I'm not saying that this is easy, Tom, but just convert judgments, criticisms, and labels and diagnoses into observation, and your anger will drop anywhere between 70% of your anger will drop off. Once you convert those things, 80% of your anger will drop off. And for those of you who are living with an angry person, once you learn how to convert those, the person can't be angry around you anymore, because you'll just actually wipe out their anger. It's not that hard, but it takes practice.
Think about the harmony that could be. Awesome.
Yeah, it's a good thing. And it's harmony that's based in passion and passionate and grounded truth.
Right.
Not opinionated truth. Okay?
Awesome. All right,
Tom.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks a million. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth Podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.